A lot can happen in a week. Some of it good, some of it bad, some of it downright ugly. When faced with intriguing developments in the week's news, we turn to a rotating panel of non-experts to parse the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. On today's panel, Mary Flood, legal consultant with Andrevet Legal Media and Marketing, David Branham, professor of political science at the University of Houston downtown, and Marco Roberts, chairman of the Texas Conservative Liberty Forum. Mary, David, Marco, welcome to Houston Matters.
Happy to be here.
Thank you, Craig.
Panel, just last week, right here on The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, we talked about the potential for more autonomous vehicles on Houston area roads as a company called Nuro announced it would expand its coverage area in Houston and use an AI driver system for some cars in its fleet. Except now it looks like there could be fewer such cars on Houston roads. While Nuro continues its efforts, the Associated Press reported this week that General Motors is pulling funding from its autonomous vehicle initiative and plans to step back from robo-taxis entirely. Cruise, a California-based subsidiary of GM, had just in recent months announced it would restart testing operations here in Houston. According to Houston Public Media's Sarah Grunow, on Wednesday, the fleet of about 50 Cruise vehicles sat still in a fenced lot at the intersection of West Alabama and Roseland Streets, and emails to Cruise representatives bounced back on Wednesday. GM also did not respond to emails seeking comment about Cruise's Houston operations. Instead, a person representing Cruise sent a statement from its CEO, Mark Whitten, noting only that his team was, quote, collaborating closely with GM on next steps, whatever that means. A week after some competition suggested it was poised to expand operations in Houston, GM and it would appear its subsidiary Cruise could be getting out of the driverless car game. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Mary Flood.
Good. I'm happy that they're not going to be there. I worked downtown most of the last 3 or 4 decades, and outside of, idiotically trying to cross a freeway on foot, walking around downtown Houston is one of the most dangerous places to be a pedestrian already. I got almost hit a couple times. Once the lady stopped about 2 inches from me in front of Jones Hall, and she rolls down her windows and goes, "Sorry if I hit you." And I'm like, really? That sounds really sincere. The former police chief, Charles McClellan, he hit a guy. He hit a pedestrian because you're not used to seeing the people, I guess, but he was just going to turn. He was like a block from police headquarters and hit a pedestrian. And given that these guys have hit someone and dragged them 20 feet, to me, that's not a venial sin. That's a mortal sin. It's not a misdemeanor. It's a felony. It's a capital offense. You stop. They need to stop. They're clearly not safe. Their weather's a problem for them. Bikers are a problem. Pedestrians are a problem. Emergency vehicles are a problem. They just shouldn't be doing this. And I know that a lot of human drivers aren't safe either, but I just want those guys out, and I'm thrilled that they're out. But I still think, the tunnels are probably the safest place for you downtown. And that's one of the reasons there aren't that many pedestrians and people don't expect them. But no, get them out of there.
All right. Good, bad, or ugly? Marco Roberts.
Well, I'm gonna agree with Mary on this one. I think it's good for now. I mean, they're not ready for prime time at this point. I do think it's the future, no matter what, but it's delayed, and I think that they certainly have a lot of things to work out. One of the things, it's amazing as people talk about the technology, how difficult it is to replicate what the human brain can do, and that they project that ultimately these will be safer than human drivers, but the main obstacle today is, of course, human drivers, meaning that the AI drivers have a hard time anticipating and dealing with things that for a normal human being would be easy to do or normal. And then, of course, there were earlier a couple of years ago, gruesome accidents that occurred where they would have never occurred with a human, but the robot couldn't figure out something that seems simple to us. So again, it amazes you what, the complexity of the human brain. I think there's another element here, of course, the finances aspect with robotaxis. Any taxi service in Houston is always going to be a little bit of a harder proposition than it would be for San Francisco or New York. I mean, New York has almost 10 times the density population that we do here. Like 30,000 people per square mile. We're at less than 4,000. San Francisco's near 20,000. So those are very different scales. Any cost that a taxi has to compute is going to take you a lot longer distance because everything is further apart. But then there's the last part of it is like it's a little more time for us to be able to drive our cars, because I know in a TED Talk I heard a couple of months ago, they were talking about how eventually they won't allow us to drive our cars because we'll be a threat to the AI drivers. And so that human beings will be seen as the obstacle drivers. And so I like driving cars. So for now it's like, okay, we get a respite, a little more time for us to be able to drive our own cars.
Yeah, to run a red light ourselves.
Exactly, run over that person if you just need to.
Yeah, but the police chief did stop when he hit the pedestrian.
Of course.
So that was, that's a plus right there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, good, bad, or ugly, David Branham.
I'm going to say ugly because of my hope that, beyond hope, that this would actually become a good thing, and we would actually have the technology to be able to send cars out on the road without human beings driving them. But then Mary reminded me that just the other day, after walking around for 20 years in downtown Houston, I came within inches of getting rolled over by a van when I had the green light in a crosswalk. And I just don't know how you're going to get the technology to protect the pedestrian in these situations. I mean, what I anticipate happening is they're going to create technology where the car stops at any cost when they see anybody who may walk across the crosswalk. And since that happened to me, I've had two occasions just the last couple of days where I needed to turn right and there were pedestrians standing at the crosswalk, but they didn't go. And they were even facing like they were going across the crosswalk, but they didn't go. So I had to make a decision. I had to make a calculation. And I don't know how you're going to make a computer make that calculation where I say, okay, I'm going to watch these two, make sure that I can go past them without running over them. And if they jump out there all of a sudden the last second, I'm going to be able to stop in time. So that's technology that obviously we don't have yet. So I agree. It's good. I agree with Mary and Marco. It's good that we stop this right now because we haven't perfected it. But I'm hopeful that as time goes by, we actually do perfect this because there's a lot of people who can benefit from this. Of course, Uber and taxis are not going to benefit from this. They'll eventually be out of business if that's the case. But there are people that they're too old to drive, people who are handicapped and they can't drive. All of that could give them more freedom. And I'm hopeful that in the long run that they're going to be able to get that. So it'll be good when that occurs.
Panel, a new course at the University of Houston will explore the Black history of the American West using Beyoncé's latest album as a guide. The course, taught by Dr. Alicia Odewale, is called Before Cowboy Carter, Black Towns, Black Freedom. As the Cron's Jamil David reported Wednesday, the course will highlight the long legacy of black towns, black country western music, and black cowboys, and will offer a framework for understanding the roots that inspired Cowboy Carter. Dr. Odewale says the class will help reclaim a history that's been largely erased. Beyoncé's Grammy-nominated album Cowboy Carter has inspired a new history class at UH. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Marco.
I'm kind of torn on this one. There's good in it, but then there's just stuff that just makes me want to not feel. I feel queasy about it. I just don't like the celebrity aspect. I think it's just cheap. It's just a cheap marketing of a topic. I think the topic itself is legitimate, and I think that it should be treated with a little more seriousness than just Beyonce. And I mean, it just follows a whole long list of courses now that are either celebrity based or something having to do with celebrity. And I kind of don't like the idea of our culture just having to always to be entertained. That's what our expectation is, that everything should be something pop culture entertainment. I mean, you got, I think, courses in NYU and other places that feature Taylor Swift, Harry Styles, Nicki Minaj, Kanye West. I mean, it goes on a list of celebrities now that are just the topic or the base of a college course, which I also think is a little bit cheating. It's like you're literally just doing whatever is fun for you. You're a fan of this celebrity, and now you get to just write about this person that you like so much about and make a whole course out of it instead of doing some serious research. But the topic itself, though, is actually interesting, because it is easy to forget that in a nation where, whites are the majority, have been like somewhere in the 70% range, it's easy for that to get lost, that there's other communities that have participated in the development of this country, whether they're Asian Americans or Hispanic Americans or Black Americans.
Or Native Americans.
Or Native Americans, too, all of them in different
we weren't
ways.
always 70% white.
And it's really interesting. I mean, to see photos of all Western towns with literally a Chinese laundry signage on there, which we normally don't see that in the movies. So I think that the course itself, I think, is a good thing. I just think it's a bad thing that they're wanting to do it through this Beyoncé angle.
Is it that it's a bad thing that they're doing it through that angle, or that they think that's the only way maybe to draw some students in to be interested in the thing that they think is more serious?
Well, I think that's a good point. I think that's what they think, obviously. They think that this is the way to do it, and I wish that wasn't necessary, I hope they're wrong. I hope that you didn't. I would hope that people would be genuinely interested, that you wouldn't need to have all the glitter and pizzazz to get people interested in a topic like this.
All right, good, bad, or ugly, David.
I'm gonna say good, and listening to Marco as a professor, I understand what he's talking about, but I also understand that sometimes you need that little glitz to get people going. And then maybe you can pull them into the seriousness with it, and that's kind of what I'm hoping for here. In the information age, to me, history is one of the biggest subjects that we can learn more about with what we have with technology and so forth. And so maybe this will give us a good jump start. I think history has been convoluted and misinterpreted and misexplained for so long that I think it's time just to sit back and say, look, let's see if we can get it a little closer to right. And I think this is a way to do it. I mean, there are historic things that went on with Black communities that you can point the arrow straight at what happened in those communities and explain why the oppression has had such a bad effect in this country over our history. And so I think on that topic alone, it's very important that we understand. There were thriving Black cities that were basically oppressed from the outside because the white majority did not want them to thrive. And so we need to find out about that and make sure that this does not repeat itself. Remember, history is important because we don't want to repeat the bad things that have happened. So I think it's really important for this to occur. But I also think that, all of history, we need to look at closer. Thomas Jefferson's face is on Mount Rushmore. I don't believe his face belongs on Mount Rushmore. He's not one of my heroes. And when I was growing up in elementary school, he was. But then I started reading about him and then looking at what he had actually done and the acts of his life, and I'm not a fan. And so I think that it's important that everybody understands that, and that sometimes when we see what we heard in history, we need to re-examine it. Sometimes we've passed over things that need to be examined. And so when I see something like this where we're opening up a new book, even if it's if it takes Beyoncé to get us there, I think it's a good thing.
All right, good, bad, or ugly, Mary.
One, I'm not sure anybody's face belongs on Mount Rushmore. When I visited, I'm like, why did we do this to this beautiful mountain? But anyway, I think this is kind of good, not super bad. It's obviously a gimmick, like a clickbait to get people interested. And I think it's more akin a gimmick to, using that Enron symbol for whatever that was, merch sales. I don't know what silliness that was. More akin to that than to the Taylor Swift that Marco mentioned, the Taylor Swift class here at U of H, that was actually about her business acumen, she's a pretty brilliant businesswoman. But this class does sound interesting. And the professor herself, who's an archaeologist, she's the grandniece of a guy who survived the 21 Tulsa massacre. She sounds pretty fascinating. And the class description, it's about slavery and it's about roads to freedom and Black towns in the West, Black cowboys, and she said they're going to go over archaeological evidence. And that all sounds really serious. But then when you look at what the class assignments are, coming up with a playlist sounds a little less rigorous.
I would agree with that, yeah.
And it's not a grad class, but, I don't know. But like most Americans, I love and respect Beyoncé. And this album was really cool for a lot of reasons. I mean, it had all these different genres and all these different cameos, and the fact that it sparked conversation and disagreement and ruffled feathers was all really good. The fact that it was completely ignored at the CMAs was not really good. She deserved better, like she got with the other one, the Grammys. Yeah. But Craig, I just want to thank you for putting this topic before us, because now I'll be singing Texas Hold'em in my head for another 6 months or so. Thanks a lot.
Well, I just have to say, though, just to kind of touch a little on what some of the things that David said. First of all, I'm a Thomas Jefferson admirer, so no holds barred there. But I think that the truth of history, which is also the truth of human beings, is that we are very morally complex creatures with a lot of good things and bad about us. And and we have a desire sometimes to paint people or groups of people or individuals with broad brushes when the reality is a lot more complex, which is why I kind of like this course, because it talks about some of the details that we sometimes miss. But I do feel that this thing about, we've erased history and so we need to rediscover it. I'm going, well, we haven't really erased it. I mean, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't know about it. So it's more of a featuring. And I don't think that everything is always about people trying to put people down. Sometimes it's done unintentionally. Sometimes people just do what they do because that's all they know. It's not like they set out a plan and say, we want to hurt some folks. And the fact that human beings are complicated and every community has both good and bad folks that help others and folks that don't help others. And I hope that this course, as other courses, are taught more in that respect and started trying to figure out who are the bad guys and who are the good guys.
I'm with you on Jefferson. I love it when we agree on something that has some politics to it.
Well, I could talk for about 10 minutes on why I don't like him, but that's
no,
okay. But I do agree with Marco that, I want all different perspectives. I don't want to erase what we've already learned. I just want to add to it. And so, perspectives on both sides are needed for us as individuals to make an intelligent decision on what we think actually happened. So I agree with him, especially on his last part where he's basically saying, look, let's not look at good guys, bad guys, and so forth. Humans are complex. Let's understand that they're complex, which means that they need a lot more study than we've probably given them.
And then we can do a playlist about it.
Mine will be from the 70s and 80s.
Mine too, man.
Mary Flood is a legal consultant with Androvet Legal Media and Marketing. David Branham is professor of political science at the University of Houston downtown. Marco Roberts is chairman of the Texas Conservative Liberty Forum. Mary, David, Marco, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.